Awesome. All right. So, I guess let's start. Tokia aleo. Mi ilotani liwite pana e sona open pi toki pona tawa sina. Lona ni di sona open taso. All right. Hey everyone. I'm Ilotani, and today I will be presenting on an introduction to Toki Pona. So, a little background about me. I started learning the language around 2.5 years ago, and since then I've been pretty active in the community. I've made some educational material in the past, so I have a YouTube video published called Toki Pona in 18 minutes, which is like a pretty fast-paced crash course, basically through all of Toki Pona's grammar that you'll need to know to use the language. And I've made a website called nimi.ly, which is a front end for Sonalinku. Sonalinku is a community-based dictionary project where they take all of the Toki Pona words and translate them into dozens of different languages so that they're accessible to more people. And the Linku group also does a bunch of other projects like surveying people to determine word usage rates and also collecting smaller words that some people have tried to coin. Anyways, today I'll be talking about some of Toki Pona's history, what you can do with it, and a quick crash course to introduce some of the basic concepts of Toki Pona so that you guys can start speaking it. All right, so number one, Toki Pona li seme. What is Toki Pona? So I'm sure everyone here has heard of Toki Pona by now. But a quick synopsis, it's a small constructed language with around 120 words. Depending on the speaker, that can be 120-ish or 130 maybe, all the way up to maybe 140. It definitely depends on who you're speaking with. In my experience, it's definitely on the lower side, maybe 120 to 130. In the community, there are tens of thousands of speakers, and most of this is happening primarily online, especially with how new Toki Pona is. So you can find a lot of people active on communities like Discord and also maybe Reddit. There were also estimates for the number of proficient speakers language that you might be able to hold a conversation with. And back in 2021, Toki Pona was applying for an ISO code from the International Organization for Standardization. And so there's this like whole document made for that with a bibliography, and they estimated around like a 2,000 speaker mark. And we did end up getting the ISO code, which means that modern computers can recognize Toki Pona given that code, which I think is pretty cool. So one idea of this language, because of its constricted lexicon, because of how few words there are, is to break things down into smaller and more fundamental components to allow you to express yourself more deliberately. And we can see that in the name of the language itself. Toki Pona means something like the good language or the language of good when you're talking about the language. This word toki comes from or it means something like language or speech or communication, which is the language part. And toki actually comes from the Tok Pisin word tok, which comes from the English word talk. Tok Pisin is a Creole language that's spoken in Papua New Guinea. And Sonia Lang, when making Toki Pona, took a lot of inspiration, both grammatically and I guess vocabulary-wise, from Tok Pisin. So toki is from indirectly from English talk, and the word bona is actually from the Esperanto word bona, which you'll definitely recognize this root from a lot of Romance languages. In other contexts, Toki Pona can also mean other things contextually. So you might also say Toki Pona as in someone gave a good speech, or Toki Pona as in, oh, I'm having positive thoughts right now. So it's definitely a few versatile words. All right, next, Toki Pona li tanseme. Where is Toki Pona from? So it was originally created and worked on by Sonia Lang from 2000 to 2001. And then afterwards, she published the first documentation online in 2001. What happened here after that was a lot of people started to see the language and actually started to pick it up and started speaking it. And so after a few years, in 2014, Lang published this book, Toki Pona, The Language of Good, which essentially documents her style of the language. This is kind of a foundational text for Toki Pona because a lot of people will take this book or buy this book, and that can be their first exposure to learning some of Toki Pona. And even though it was made over a decade ago now, pretty much all of it is still up to date and would be useful in allowing you to understand Toki Pona as it is spoken today as well. After that, in 2021, well, before 2021, we had the COVID pandemic, of course. And I think a lot of other Conlang communities also experienced this, but Toki Pona grew a bunch during that time, especially in online communities like Mapona pi Toki Pona, which is the largest Discord server. Mapona pi Toki Pona currently has, I believe, 16,000 members. And so with that, Lang published this book, Toki Pona Dictionary, in 2021. Instead of documenting her own style of the language here, she sent out a series of surveys in this Discord server, essentially asking people to translate English words into Toki Pona. Then you have tens of thousands of English words in this book that each have corresponding potential translations that you might use when speaking in Toki Pona. So Toki Pona Dictionary is a really great place to go for translation ideas or to see how other people might talk about a specific concept. Then just last year, in 2024, Lang published a translation of The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, and that is going to be the first book in hopefully a series of, actually, it's definitely going to be a series of additional translated books that Lang put out. Lang has teased the table of contents for the next book in this series on her Blue Sky. And she's also teased a coming second edition of Toki Pona, The Language of Good, that is going to be more comprehensive and detailing more modern use. So I think that's something that we can look forward to in the future. I also want to note that all of these resources are kind of official. I'm hesitant to completely say official because today Toki Pona is a language that doesn't really have a central authority, and its direction is largely just determined by its speakers as a whole. So Toki Pona Dictionary, for example, documents the language as a subset of people in the community used it in 2021, not any specific authorities prescribing the way that the language should be used or saying that a specific translation could be right or wrong. And Lang has explicitly stated that she wants to be treated just as another speaker of the language rather than an authority that can determine the value or the quality of some kind of Toki Pona speech. On her website, it states an experienced friend, not an authority. So she is a good teaching figure, but she shouldn't be seen as someone that's higher than anyone else that is also in that kind of position. Next, Toki Pona the Tawaseme. What is Toki Pona for? Well, when Lang created the language, she stated that she attempted to describe the meaning of life using a language with 120 words or fewer. In reality, we're not really sure why she wanted to do this or if this was her only motivation, but in reality, she shared it with the world. And now, 2 decades later, it's a living language that has lots of different speakers that would answer this question completely differently. So really, it depends on the speaker. A lot of people use Toki Pona clearly exclusively is the word, as a medium to speak with others in a new community. So a lot of people will simply learn Toki Pona and then pretty much just use it to talk with other people, not particularly into art or that kind of stuff. A lot of other people will use Toki Pona primarily as a tool for their art or games or literature or music. So you can see at this image on the side, this is a YouTube playlist with a lot of Toki Pona songs, and there are around 700, a little over 700 videos in that right now. So there's a lot of Toki Pona music that you can also consume. There's also a lot of efforts to translate existing games into Toki Pona. For example, Minecraft has an official Toki Pona translation. So if you have Minecraft, you can open it and change your language to Toki Pona, and you'll already start seeing it. Another thing people use Toki Pona for is a more personal language, kind of more similar to the way Lang probably originally used it as a personal journaling language to speak with themselves as well as with others. And that Toki Pona might be helpful here to kind of communicate or kind of change the perspective of the way that you communicate or say things. A lot of people use Toki Pona as an experiment to learn a first L2. And this is also where I think the appeal of Toki Pona is for like a general audience and what really draws people in towards the language. A lot of people might think, oh, learning like a second language seems really complicated, or it seems like it would take a lot of time or effort. But oh, Toki Pona is this language right here. It says it only has 120 words. So a lot of people might try to learn Toki Pona just to see if they can learn a first L2. And definitely people that are in this bucket definitely fall into a lot of other buckets as well. And also, Toki Pona is a gateway into more conlangs and learning about linguistics in general. And I definitely fall into this bucket as well. I think Toki Pona was the thing that really got me into linguistics and conlangs as a whole. And it's the reason why, like, at university right now, I'm currently getting a minor in linguistics. And actually, for that, I'm doing a little corpus study on Toki Pona that I might talk about later. I think it's pretty cool. Anyways. Next, Toki Pona, the kenseme. What can Toki Pona do? So, in my opinion, one really great thing about Toki Pona is that because the lexicon is so small, understanding the context of your speech and the message that you're trying to get across situationally is really important, and it makes you more deliberate. So imagine a friend is offering you a bowl full of fruit that you've never seen before. You might say, oh, sure, I'll take the reddish one. You don't need a specific word for any of the fruits in the bowl because you already have all of these other tools at your disposal to clearly state the one that you want. So it's really easy to do. In my experience, Toki Pona can also improve the quality of back and forth conversations, or at least not lose any quality that you would get from any natural language. For example, the next day, a different friend asks you what you ate. Maybe if you really liked the fruit, you might say something like, oh, it was this reddish fruit. When I cut it open, there were a lot of sweet little seeds inside, and I liked how they tasted. Or maybe the fruit wasn't ripe and you didn't like it. You might say, oh, it was this weird red fruit. There were a lot of little seeds inside that were sour and they were hard to eat. This reply does two things, right? First, it gives the listener enough information to identify that you ate a pomegranate yesterday. And it also gives you the opportunity to talk about your opinion of the fruit at the same time. In both worlds, if your friend has had pomegranates before, they'll know what you ate. But because Toki Pona forces you to be more descriptive like this, to add this kind of level of disambiguation, you can also create this additional layer of conversationality or subjectivity that, in my experience, can make conversations more fun and dynamic. I also want to talk about communicating technical ideas. So, in my opinion, one of the biggest misconceptions about Toki Pona is that its small lexicon and simple syntactic structure prevents you from having more nuance or talking about complex topics like specific fields in math, for example. In my experience, that's not true. With proficiency in Toki Pona, just like any other language, speakers can talk about anything that they understand and be understood by listeners. That's why we have recorded discussions of fields like non-Euclidean geometry by Jan Telekoman, investment strategy and retirement planning by Jan Tepo. Jan Tepo actually presented that at last year's Sunopi Toki Pona, which is an event similar to this, but specifically for Toki Pona. Paleontology and evolution, and a lot of other things, blood disorders, Buddhism. And my friend Lipamanka actually learned about derivatives and calculus completely in Toki Pona and then was able to ace a test on them afterwards. So this is definitely a capable language that you can communicate technical things with. And you can also check out a list of other things here at Lang's website. Another thing I'd like to add is that Toki Pona can, in my experience, make communication better for some of these complex topics, especially in teaching contexts when you want to give information about one of these topics to someone. Because in Toki Pona, it's impossible to parrot jargon words or use vocabulary that you and the listener might have a different understanding of. In the past, you might have had an argument with someone about what a word means, or you might have had a disagreement or fight that stems from a misunderstanding of a specific word. But because Toki Pona forces you to break down these concepts into parts that you and your listener are essentially mutually guaranteed to understand, you're kind of freed from the world of needing to find the right word. And instead, you are put into this world of how can I make sure I and my listener come to the same mutual understanding and get to the same page. All right. So that's enough about like Toki Pona's background. Let's get into Nasin Toki, the way of speaking Toki Pona. All right. So first of all, we have the kalama, the sounds of Toki Pona. So first of all is the consonants. Toki Pona is a very small phonemic inventory. We have 9 consonants and 5 vowels. So we have p, t, k, m, n, s, w, l, y. We also have 5 vowels similar to Spanish and other systems like that. I, u, e, o, a. Now, this small consonant inventory means that Toki Pona sounds are really easy to learn and produce for speakers of almost all natural languages. But the g, not having a distinction between unvoiced and voiced plosives means that you are free to pronounce them however you want. So for example, when speaking Toki Pona, I prefer to not aspirate my b, d, g sounds, but a lot of speakers will, and that doesn't impede understanding at all. There's only one fricative, and this approximate L, because there's only one because there's only one liquid rather, someone from a language like Japanese would be free to pronounce this L sound as a R sound, as a tap, and they would also be completely understandable in Toki Pona. The phonotactic rules are also incredibly simple. Syllables can only be consonant, vowel, and optionally a nasal at the end. So words are always going to alternate between consonants and vowels and maybe a nasal in between. There's also a few banned syllable onsets. So we have wu and wo that are banned because the glide happens to be very close to the vowel. Yi banned for the same reason. We have double nasals banned, which means that you can't begin a syllable with a nasal after the previous syllable in a word ends with a nasal. And we also have T banned. And T is not an allowed syllable because a lot of languages will undergo a sound change called palatalization, where the sounds T and ki become closer to sounds like C. So when words are borrowed into Toki Pona, we typically change T sounds into something that sounds like C. There's also no vowel hiatus, which means that within a word, 2 vowels cannot come next to each other. That means the onset consonant in every syllable is mandatory in every syllable but the first. Also, stress is word initial always. So this word is always pronounced sitelen, and this word is always pronounced soeli, not sitelen or soeli. Next is the orthography. The orthography is also pretty simple. First is the Latin script, sitelen lacina. Each phoneme is simply written with the same symbol as in the IPA. So we have p, t, k, m, n, s, w, l, y, a, e, i, o, u. So this is pretty easy to learn for English speakers. You just need to remember that the J makes the y sound like in German. And maybe for a German speaker learning, you just have to remember that the W makes the w and not the v sound. Only names are capitalized. So that means a content word is never going to be capitalized even at the beginning of a sentence. So names are always going to be capitalized, and they always come after another word to describe what that thing is. So in Toki Pona, you'll never actually see a name on its own. First, you'll have a noun and then the name. So for example, in Yan Sonia, Yan means person, and then Sonia is the name of that person. In Ma USA, Ma is the kind of thing that it is. It's a place, and then USA is a name. Ma USA is a way to talk about the US. You might also say Ma Mewika or Ma Amewika. There's a lot of ways to Toki Ponai's. Toki inli is the most common way to refer to the English language. So toki, once again, refers to a communication, and inli is a toki ponization of the word English. So because of this, sentences are never going to be capitalized because names are never going to be the first word in a sentence, and we don't capitalize non-name content words. There's another alternate writing system, Sita dan Pona, which is a logography, where we have one symbol for each word. So you can see here we have a few example words. So most of these are pretty ideographic. Soili right here is a land creature or land mammal. So we have a little creature with 2 eyes and 4 legs. Kasi refers to plants. So we have a little stem with 2 leaves. Luka refers to hands or limbs or branches and those kinds of things. So it has a little hand as a symbol. Iyo is the most general word. So it can refer to events, it can refer to people, it can refer to things, just anything. So it's just a circle. We can also combine symbols with radicals to get other words. So Luka is a hand, but Pana is a hand with these things that are called emitters. Emitters are a common radical. And so when you see we have a hand with emitters, Pana means to give or to emit. Toki is this Io circle with emitters because it's kind of like you're transmitting something, you're transmitting information. Ilo is this little hammer symbol, and ilo means tool or device. So the word kepeken, which means to use or usage, is this hand with this ilo on top. Pali means to create. So we have this luka, which is the hand, plus this io thing on top. Toki Pona, you can also combine these symbols sometimes. And so I have this symbol for Toki and then this little smiley face inside for Pona. All right, so now we can start making some basic sentences. So I'll have these words at the top, Toki, Pona, Yan, which means person, Soeli, Moku, which means food or any kind of food or to eat, and Kili, which refers to fruits and vegetables. Moku has this little hand radical and this radical on top, which is uta, which means mouth. So if you have a hand in mouth, that becomes food or to eat. So Toki Pona has a pretty simple word order for sentences. For intransitive sentences, you'll always have subject, li, predicate. And the predicate can be anything. It can be a verb, it can be an adjective, it can be a noun. And all you have to do is make sure this word li is in front of it. This word li actually comes from Esperanto's third-person pronoun he. And the grammar is very similar to Tokpisin's grammar, where you insert a little particle e between the subject and the predicate. So let's try it out. We have kili, li, pona. So kili refers to fruits or vegetables. We have li marking the next word as the predicate, and then pona, which means good. So kili li pona means something like, oh, the fruits or vegetables are good. Our next word, yan li moku, or our next sentence, yan li moku, people eat. So yan is the subject, moku is the predicate. So we have people doing the action of eating. But notice that I said that the predicate can either be a verb or a noun. So we can also say something like kili di moku. So in this situation, kili is the subject and moku is the predicate. So kili is fruit or vegetable and moku is the predicate. So in this situation, moku is far more likely to mean food rather than eating because it makes more semantic sense for a person to be eating, but for some kind of fruit to be food. We also have a bunch of pronouns. So mi, sina, ona, and ni are Toki Pona's 4 pronouns. We only have 4. Mi is the first person pronoun. It's represented by this little hand pointing downwards as if towards the speaker. Sina is the second person pronoun, pointing away from the speaker. And ona is the third person pronoun, kind of pointing towards the side, neither towards the speaker nor the listener. Ni is a demonstrative word. So you can use that when talking about pointing at like a situation or a specific thing. There is one specific grammar rule that has an exception in Toki Pona, and that is me and Sina don't have li when when me or Sina exactly is the subject. So if I want to say I understand, that would be me sona. If I want to say you understand, that would be Sina sona. Sona right here is this little square with these emitters on top. This little square is lipu, and that represents like documents or paper or something. And these emitters are that emission of that knowledge. On the other hand, the third person pronoun ona li does take the word li, and so does the word ni. One way to remember this, or one reason for this, I suppose, is the word li comes from Esperanto's third person pronoun, of course, right? But this grammar also mirrors the grammar of Tokpisin. Tokpisin will also not have their little particle e when exactly me or you is the subject. So in Tokpisin, you might say me wok, as in I work, you wok, as in you work, but em e wok, as in they, and then that particle, and then wok. And that little particle e actually comes from the English word he, just like this particle li comes from the Esperanto word for he. So that's a pretty interesting parallel. So now with these words, I want to see what sentences all of you guys can form. So maybe shout out a sentence that uses these words, or maybe say a sentence in chat or something. Soeli, li kili.
Okay.
Ah, there we go. Mi lukin e soeli. Yeah. So mi lukin e soeli is a sentence that uses an object, which we're going to be looking at right next. Mi sona can also mean I learn, but in my experience, sona is generally stative, which means it's like I'm describing I currently understand, or I will understand, or I did understand. So for saying I learn, I'd probably use a preverb like mi kama sona, which I'm not going to cover in this presentation. Jojo says ona likili. Yep. Kylan says soeli ni lipona. Yep, that's a use case of modification.
Uh,
Yes.
Mi Moku Kili. Is that right?
Me
Is that
almost. So actually, we're
okay?
gonna look at that on the next slide. Objects. If you want to provide an object to the verb, you need a particle
Okay.
e between the verb and the
Okay.
next noun. Yeah,
Okay.
and the reason for this is without this particle e, the word right after the verb becomes an adverb instead. So if you say mi moku kili, that means kili is kind of some kind of adverb that's like fruit-like, or like I eat in a way that's characterized by fruit, for example.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, someone in chat says you implied there were circumstances when me or and Sina might use Lee after all. Yes. So only when exactly me or exactly Sina is only when it's exactly me or exactly Sina do you add that particle li. But maybe you modify the word me with a word like mute, which means many. So mi mute, which can mean something like the many of us, li moku. So you would still add the word li if you change the subject in any way so that it's not exactly me or Sina. So, oh yeah, now that we have this object, we can try out a few other translations. So, yeah, Kylan is right. Sona mi li mute. Mi moku e soeli. Yes. So soeli li lukin e kili. Soeli is the subject. Lukin is this verb that means to see. And kili is the object. So we'll have and animals are watching the fruits. Yanli sone soeli.
The animals are what? Oh, sorry, I forgot you.
Yeah, so Yanli Yanli sone soeli, people understand animals. And mi pona e sona. Ooh, this is really interesting. You can use every word in every part of speech, in every content word at least, in every part of speech in Toki Pona. So we can take this word pona, which is generally adjective-like, and use it as a transitive verb. So normally, if I didn't have this e sona here, just the sentence mi pona would mean something like I'm good or I'm okay, I'm well. But now that I'm adding this object here, pona becomes a transitive verb. So a good way to think about this is with the English if I suffix. It's kind of a causative word. So if now instead of meaning I'm good, it means I'm making the sona good. I'm improving the knowledge. I'm improving the knowledge. Yeah. So that's another thing that you can say. Yeah, Larry says Mimoku is soili and kasi. So this is conjunction. And so the way we do conjunction in Toki Pona is actually just by repeating these marking particles. So if I say e soili, then that means soili is one of the objects. Then I'll just say e kili right after that to supply another object as a conjunction. This is a good time to talk about semantic spaces. So Toki Pona's vocabulary, or Toki Pona's grammar is incredibly simple. So nouns lack number and definiteness. So something like mama could mean parents or the parent or or the parents, I guess. Um, and verbs also lack tense or aspect. So if you go back here, mi pona e sona might mean, oh, I improved the knowledge. Or it could mean something like, I will improve the knowledge, depending on the context that you're talking in. And also, because the lexicon is so small, a lot of words are far more general than they would be compared to like natural languages. So mama is a word that refers to parents or ancestors. So this can refer to both mothers and fathers. We often like to say that this word mama comes from the Georgian word mama, which means father. Uh, another word is lipu. So Toki Pona's lexicon, a lot of its vocabulary has metaphors that will describe separate concepts and kind of relate them together. So lipu refers to flat sheets of things. So that could be paper or leaves. You could also use lipu to refer to books that are collections of these sheets, or even things like pancakes. Pancake is definitely a lipu. So I might call that like a pan lipu or something. But metaphorically, it can also refer to documents or websites. So, for example, my website nimi.ly is also a kind of lipu, or YouTube is often a kind of lipu. The word sewi refers to a space above or a higher part. Oh, it looks like the end of this got cut off. But sewi refers to the space above something. So sewi mi could be like my ceiling, for example. Or it can refer to divinity. So a yan sewi might be some kind of holy person, maybe a prophet or the son of God or something like that. Or some people often like to call God sewi as well. The word lawa means to rule or control, but as a noun, it can also mean something like a head or mind or rules or leader. And what brings all of these things together is that is um, lawa is part of a whole that controls the rest of the whole. So, for example, the rules in a community are part of that community, but they dictate how things in that community should operate. The leader in a company, for example, or the leader of a country is part of that country, but also controls the direction that that country might go in. The head of an animal is part of that animal, but can control the rest of that animal. So you have these different ideas that are all linked together with that one concept. Lain is another one that I really like. So it refers to clothing or coverings of any sort. So a hat could be lain. This jacket I'm wearing could be lain. But it also refers metaphorically to secrecy and privacy. So, for example, in the Discord server, people often might spoil text behind like a specific thing that you have to click on before you can reveal that text. And we often call that lain because that text is being hidden. My friend Lipa Manka has a really great website that describes a bunch of these words. And I definitely recommend you go and read that. I can put that link here. All right. Next, we have modifying words. So some people already made some sentences that had modifiers, but in Toki Pona, modification always is from left to right, or rather head initial, I guess. So we always have noun and then the adjective placed afterwards, and verbs and then the adverb placed afterwards. So if mi sona e Toki Pona, this is a clear place where you can see modification, where Toki is being modified by Pona. So that could be I understand Toki Pona, or it could mean something like, oh, I got that good speech, or something like that. Yan sona li lukin esina is sona modifying yan. So once again, because every word can be used in every part of speech, sona can also be used as an adjective or a modifier to the word yan. So this is something like a person characterized by knowledge is looking at you. So sona here, or yan sona here, in a school, it might be referring to the teacher because they're characterized by having hopefully the most knowledge in a subject. Or in a library, the Yansona might be the librarian because they're the ones that know the most about the things that are happening in that library. And then also pronouns, when used as modifiers, also come after the words that they modify. So this is different from some natural languages, but soeli mi li nasapona is something like my soeli is strange in a good way. So nasa is something like strange or silly, and then pona is saying, hey, that's a good thing. I like that. So now with modifiers, I want to see what other kinds of phrases or sentences all of you can come up with. Uh,
Soeli Mili Pona.
nice. Soeli mili pona, my animal is good. My soeli is good. That might be
Okay.
my pet, for example.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
that
Thank
could
you.
be, yeah. You could describe, for example, if you have a dog, your dog would be soeli mi. Yanli lukin ekasi. A person sees a plant. Yep. Uh, okay. Uh, Toki Pona li pona e lawami. That's very good. Toki Pona improves my mind. It improves my head. Yankasi li moku pona e kili nasa. So yankasi is some kind of person that's associated with plants. So that might be the person in the garden or the person that likes gardening, for example. Li moku pona is the verb with the adverb. Moku means to eat, and then pona is means that you're eating something well. And then kili nasa. So kili nasa is the object. Kili is the fruit or vegetable that they're eating, and nasa describes the quality of that. So that could be like a silly fruit or an unusual fruit.
Uh,
Yes.
uh, um,
All right. Next, we have nimi, names. So names, like I said earlier, are modifiers, and names are special in that they can only be used as modifiers to things. So I have this little set of letters here, and just a reminder that these are the phonotactics with no additional and with adjacent vowels. And these three words, yan for people, ma for places, and toki for languages or types of communication. So I'd actually like to take a second for some interaction and write down some names of places or people that or languages that you guys like or you guys use. So if anyone would like to try tokiponizing the name of a place that they're from or the name of a language that they like, we can add this here. Makanata. Yep, makanata is uh, is Probably Canada, the country. Okay. Will says Ma California. So, F isn't a consonant in Toki Pona, so the most common way to Toki Ponaize the sound would be to change it to a P. So Ma California. But remember also that L isn't allowed at the end of a syllable. So normally in Toki Pona, we prioritize keeping the number of syllables. And when changing names into Toki Pona, we really don't like adding epenthetic sounds or adding additional sounds. So normally these additional consonants that don't fit with the phonology are dropped. So we get Ma California. Okay, Yan Iwi says Milon Ma UK, which is the UK. That's a great way to Toki Ponaize it. Michigan. So Larry says Ma Misikana. Now, because we can have N at the end of a syllable, this might be nicer as Ma Misikan, because this would also be an allowed Toki Ponization. Ma Lupek. So we have Ma Lupek. Now remember that K isn't allowed at the end of a syllable, so we would either need to add a vowel at the end of here, which generally, if we do add epenthetic vowels, they're generally mirroring other nearby vowels, but most of the time we would drop a consonant, so this would likely become Ma Lupe. Ma Ontalio li insa ma kanata. So Ontario, Ma Ontalio, that's nice. Just for that sentence there, I would say Ma Ontalio li lon insa pi makanata, because insa isn't a preposition. You would have to say is at the inside of Canada. Ma Netelan, probably the Netherlands, I would guess. That's nice. Ma Kilipilan. So I would change that B there to a P, or even a W if you think, depending on whether or not you think W is close to, is closer, or P is closer to that V sound. Or you might even say Makilan for Cleveland, where the word cleave, or the syllable cleave rather, gets collapsed into this one syllable ki. All right. Next, let's move on to asking questions. So questions, there are two main kinds of ways to form questions in Toki Pona. So first is polar questions. And this piece of grammar is really similar to Chinese, where you can take the verb of a sentence and then put the word and duplicate it and put the word not right in between. So like in Toki Pona, that would be subject li verb a la verb. So you repeat the first word of the verb phrase and put a la right in between. So you might say, Hili ni li pona a la pona. Is this fruit good? So the normal sentence would be Kili ni li pona. This fruit is good. By changing this to pona a la pona, I would make it, is this fruit good? It's a polar question asking whether or not it's true. To answer this question, Toki Pona doesn't actually have a word for yes or no. Actually, I like to say that Toki Pona has 120 different ways to say yes or no, because to respond to this question, you would repeat the verb of the sentence, pona, or to say no, you might say pona ala, which means not good. A lot of people might also just say ala here instead of pona ala as another way of saying no. Another question might be, sina sona ala sona e Toki Pona. So sina sona e Toki Pona is the base sentence before making it into a question, which means something like, you understand Toki Pona. By making it a polar question, I'm now asking, do you understand Toki Pona? So everyone in chat might say, oh, sona, or maybe sona ala, depending on whether or not you understand it. And Also, I'll challenge all of you guys in chat or to just yell it out loud to translate "Are you eating?" into Toki Pona based on this rule. Yep, so from Patrick, we get Sina moku ala moku. So remember that we always have to start with a sentence before we turn it into a question. So if we start with Sina moku means you're eating. Then to turn it into a question, we take moku, repeat it, and add ala in between. So Sina moku becomes Sina moku ala moku. Are you eating? So that's what we have here. Next, we have open-ended questions, and these are represented with this word seme, which in Cita Pona is a Latin question mark. All you have to do is use seme in place of the word to be filled in. Toki Pona is a WH in situ, I think, language, which means that you don't move question words to the front or anything. They stay right in where they are formed normally. So ona li lukine seme, we want someone to fill in the word seme. So maybe it might be ona li lukine kili, or ona li lukine mi, or ona li lukine sina. So in English, this might be what are they looking at, or what are they looking at? You can also use seme as a modifier. Yan seme li moku e kili mi ya. So ah right here is just a little intensifier. It's a little emotion particle. And so you might say, Yan seme li moku e kiri mi. What person ate my fruit? So remember that seme is modifying yan because we're saying what person. And then we have kiri mi because mi is modifying kiri. It's specifically my fruit. We also have one sentence, nimi sina li seme. So nimi means name, and it's represented by this little cartouche. Sina, the listener, li seme is what. So in Toki Pona, generally we will put something like this where we're asking what something is with seme after li at the end, rather than in English where you might say what is blank. So I might say nimi sina li seme, what's your name? And that's a common way to ask what someone's name is, of course. Next, we have sina pilin seme. In what way are you feeling? So seme here is an adverb. So I might be saying pilin means to feel. So to feel well might be mi pilin pona. I'm feeling well. Seme is asking in what way is someone feeling. So you might say, mi pilin pona, or mi pilin ike, where ike is a word that means bad. Here's a fun question, sina seme. So this is one of the most general questions that you can ask someone. You are what? So seme, all it's doing is asking you to fill in the word that comes after seme. So this can mean a bunch of different things, or this can be translated a bunch of different ways into English depending on the situation. You might say, or if you're meeting someone for the first time, you might say, mi ilotani, I'm ilotani. Or maybe if someone you've known for a long time is asking you this question, they might be asking, what are you doing? Or maybe you are just describing a crazy situation that just happened to you to your friend. And then your friend goes, sina seme, what did you do in that situation? So this can be applied in a bunch of different ways. Another way to ask polar questions is to use anu seme, which is a special construction. So if I say musi ni lipona anu seme, anu means or. So this is like saying this game is good or what. So this is an alternative way to make questions. Maybe if you want to add a tag at the end of a sentence to ensure that it's a question and something like that. I might say some longer sentence like yan poka sina li pali etomo ni anu seme. So yan poka sina, poka is something like close or nearby. So yan poka is a nearby person. So your nearby person might be someone that you're associated with, or someone that you're metaphorically or emotionally close to. So that might be an acquaintance, someone that's near you, or a friend. Pali is a verb that means to create. Tomo ni, domo actually comes from the Esperanto word domo, which is like a house, I believe. Pali comes from the Esperanto word fari also. Ni anuseme. Uh, so maybe did your acquaintance make this house or what? Um, Great. We're running a little short on time. So next I'll go to interjections. So as you noticed with these answering questions, uh, all you're saying is a single word, right? And these are a kind of interjection when you're just pointing out something that's happening. So a common one might be toki when you're just starting a conversation. So that announces that communication is happening. It's very close to hello in English. Pona is another interjection that you might see a lot, and it acknowledges that something is good. So maybe you ask someone to do something, and then they go, "Oh, sure, I'll do it." Then you could say pona. That's like a way of saying okay or fine or nice. Sona means knowledge, but you can also use it as an interjection to point out that some knowledge is there, something it was learned, or something is now understood. So you might say, if someone just explains something new to you, you might say, sona, which means, oh, I get it now. Here's a fun one that I like is wawa. And wawa means power or strength or energy in Toki Pona. So I often see this used in situations like awesome or cool or amazing in English, where maybe someone created something that you think is really cool. You might say, oh, niri wawa, or wawa, something like that. Any word can function as an interjection to point out something that's just happened. So wasoa is also an interjection. Maybe a bird just landed on your windowsill and you want to point that out to someone that you're close to. This would also function in the same way. All right. So now let's have a really quick recap. Li separates the subject and the predicate, except when the subject is exactly me or sina. E separates the verb from the object. The semantic spaces of Toki Pona's words are large, so you definitely have to be more cognizant and be able to accept the wider meaning in your head. Modifiers are going to come after the words that they modify, including pronouns and possessives. Names are a special kind of modifier, and we went over the special rules that you can use to form names. You can use x ale x or anuseme to form yes or no questions. Seme, which is this question mark in Citlan Pona, can form open-ended questions by filling or by placing it where you want some information to be filled in. And any word can be used as a short interjection that's pointing something out. All right. So I might go a little overtime to talk about this feature because I think it's pretty cool. So one feature that Toki Pona has is no embedding clauses. So in English, you might say, I saw a person who was eating fruit. Who was eating fruit is a relative clause. It's a little sentence that's inside of this other sentence. But Toki Pona, you can't put sentences inside of other ones like this. So in Toki Pona, I might say, mi lukine yan onali mokue kili. I would split that up. I saw a person, they were eating fruit. Or I might say, yanli mokue kili, mi lukine ona. This translation is a little off from a different version. You might also have an indirect question like, I want to know where I am. In Toki Pona, I often find it more natural to say something like mi don seme, mi sona ala. So instead of having this indirect question in there, I simply ask a question and then answer myself using it. There's also very few phatic phrases, so greetings can vary a lot. Toki is definitely a very common one that corresponds with hello, but a lot of people will just announce their presence like, oh, milon, or they might just say mu, which is kind of an animal vocalization onomatopoeia sound. Or a lot of people just start speaking. It's not impolite in Toki Pona just to start talking with someone. And also goodbyes vary a lot. So you might have seen like mitawa as in, oh, I'm going, as kind of just an announcement that you're leaving. But when people are saying goodbye, it often changes situationally. And you want to say that the thing that's happening right now should continue well. So there's this little inside joke. I wasn't around for this, but I've been told about this. At an in-person Toki Pona meetup, when people were eating at, I believe, a sushi place, someone had to leave. So as they were leaving, they wrote "omoku e kalapona," which means "eat a good fish" or "eat good fish." So they're wishing the rest of the people at the place to continue eating good sushi. You might say something more simple, like if you're leaving, "o awin pona," stay well, or "o musi pona," play well, if you're leaving while playing a game or something. I also want to get to how can you keep learning? So I definitely recommend this community made resource list on sona.pona.la /learn. Sona.pona.la. Sona Pona is a really great wiki in English about Toki Pona. So in addition to lists of learning resources, you can find a bunch of other information here, like obscure writing systems that people have created, or like specific obscure ways of speaking and stuff like that. I also recommend everyone here to, if you want to continue learning Toki Pona, to join Kamasona, which is a Discord server for learners. So this is a really great Discord server. I'm often around there, and you can often find really great teachers that are willing to give their time to learners. You can just pop in anywhere, ask a question, and get a response pretty much all of the time. And also, Toki Pona, The Language of Good by Sonia Lang. It's still a great resource, even after a decade and a year. I would say that everything in this book is applicable to Toki Pona today, and there's barely anything that's not in this book that you would need to learn once you start using the language. At least apart from the getting used to changing the way you think about ideas and such like that. So what else is left? So there was some grammar that I didn't cover today. Actually, this is a list of all of the grammar that I did not cover today. So prepositions, preverbs, numbers, conjunction. I did talk about conjunction a little, pi and la. So these are the pretty much the only remaining important concepts that you'll need to learn if you want to familiarize yourself with Toki Pona's grammar. And of course, there's also a few other questions that I think could be important, like why aren't there new words coming up all the time? Because like, shouldn't there be some pressure to make new words? I'll say no. How do speakers avoid lexicalizing compound phrases? So you might say, so a lot of people might think, oh, if this word with this adjective is used so often, it might start to become basically a new word in its own right. But in my experience, speakers delexicalize a lot of the time. And of course, any other general questions about Toki Pona, I would also be happy to answer.
I think there might have been some questions in the chat. Does anybody have any questions for Ilotani? Fernando?
Yes.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Who was starting to ask a question?
Yes. Yes.
Go ahead.
Thanks. Yes.
Yes.
Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. Thank you a lot for your contribution. I really love a lot the way you made your exhibition. So it was quite complete, quite exhaustive, and quite enticing indeed. So it's a really interesting language to learn, I think. I just have a question, because you said that sometimes, very often, nouns, adverbs, adjectives, and other kinds of words can be take the same form, apparently, morphologically. My question is, how do you form abstract nouns? How do you say whiteness? Yeah, starting from the word white, or to be white.
I think abstract nouns, it's generally a quality, or it's generally a process. I would say wallow means white. So if I just said wallow as a noun, most of the time it would mean whiteness, just because that's the way adjectives generally derive into nouns. If you want to say something like humanity, I would say something, just the word yan could work enough for that, because the word yan is, because you can kind of treat it as people in general, as well as any specific person or a person. I can't think of any abstract nouns, other important like ways to form abstract nouns at the moment. But I think it's definitely possible to talk about all the concepts that you can with these abstract nouns
Thank you a
in
lot.
Toki Pona. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you a lot, Ilo.
All right.
Any other questions?
You guys can also drop some questions in chat.
Oh, it's interesting how Toki Pona works regarding its words have a large semantic range. This is interesting because this sort of thing is related to how etymology works, comparative etymology, comparative word origins, and construction in natural languages all around the world.
Yeah, definitely. That reminds me of this one little database that my linguistics professor last semester showed us, which it basically lists cross-linguistic, or it basically lists lexical metaphors cross-linguistically and enumerates them for all these languages. So, for example, in 448 languages, we see moon and month are very closely related. In 402, we see the words for sun and day are the same, or at least very closely related. So we can see that all of these metaphors are really common. And so for people out there making conlangs, you might consider using this website as a way to get ideas for other metaphors that you can create. Yeah.
Thank you.
Of course.
All right, guys.
This is not Linux.
Guys, anybody else have a question for Ilotani? That was a great presentation.
Thank you.
I do have a small question if I can ask.
Go ahead.
How can like one person inspired to have their own language? Like I know that you explain the rules on the grammar, how certain syllables need to sound, but like personally, how you will recommend someone to start creating their own language?
So I personally don't have much experience with making constructed languages, but I think the most important part of creating a language is that you have to have a specific goal in mind for what you want to create. Because if you just start taking grammatical features that you find really cool from like natural languages and integrating them into your own constructed languages, I think that can kind of become a like big mess of different ideas. Whereas if you have a clear vision for, I want this language to be used for this, and so on, I definitely recommend finding what you want out of a conlang before creating one.
Let me jump in and say, Luce, that we had a presentation yesterday from the Language Creation Society. Margaret Branstel Green talked about creating your own conlang, and I would recommend going to that group, that website, the Language Creation Society, for more information if you're interested in creating your own conlang.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sure.
All right. Thank you all.
Ilotani, thank you very much. That was a great, I thought that made it really, really plain, really, really clear.